Thanks so in studio this morning, Professor Peter Kagwanya, Dr. Kenneth Ombonge, and Ahmed Hashi. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Yes, Dr.
Yeah, thank you one more time, Ayub. My colleagues have summed up the year actually in Africa, in Kenya, in East Africa, the ascendancy of dictatorships in the region, the movement from the barracks to the palace by the men in uniform, particularly in Western Africa, and the increase of piracy in our seas. And the Prof is talking about benevolent dictators versus empty ones, as it were. And also the fight of the soul of Kenya diplomatically between China and America. But one small idea that Hashi brought in that I want to weigh in, gentlemen, I'm probably the only historian in this forum, is Hashi talks about history being a product of formations. Ideally, I teach philosophy of history to my students. And the idea is that in most of the times when you look at history in a long period, what you call longue durée in more technical language, it's actually individuals who make history. The rest of the people join the bandwagon to celebrate. If you look at through history, there is always a key originator of the idea, and the majority of the people are merely followers, if you look at it. So actually, one of these fine days, you might want to join my class on that. But, to a much more important point, I think is what Prof was saying, that there is a way in which our President, Dr. Ruto, has maneuvered his way in very interesting and fascinating strategic maneuvers, if you ask me. And if the current opposition may not be keen, as they seem to be, then things are not going to be what many people expect. I think I'm a historian, and we tend to look more back than forward. But if you see, you're dealing with a guy who has a very strong background of being a strong Machiavellic strategic thinker, as it were. And the moves he has made, he realized very early, I think by the time the Gen Zs were revolting, that the bottom-up is not yielding much. He's tried to change that to what he now calls Singapore, which has characterized a greater part of the last months of the year. But his greatest success at the moment is actually the win that he has had in diplomatic circles. And the Prof made it very clear that Kenya has now become the greatest recipient of Chinese aid. And we thought he was lost in Washington. Look at what he did the other day when he visited Washington, and he even has an invitation to go there during the Olympics when Trump recognized our runners. So the point I'm trying to make is that the nature of politics that we have had in this country is one that has moved from a president who was losing it last year to a president who seems to be reinvigorating himself, and our opposition seems to be a bit helpless, but they need to go back to the drawing board and see where the rain started beating them. And I'm sure Prof. Kagwanya, as a political scientist, will talk more about that. Yes.
Ahmed, as we talk about that, certainly we cannot fail to mention and at length also discuss the reports by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and the Independent Medical and Legal Unit. More than 100 and 40 Kenyans were killed this year. 18 alone died in police custody. This is appalling, is it, in the face of human rights?
Well, the great historian Hegel in phenomenology said that history is, and Marx was his student, you know, the history is repeated twice. The first time as farce, and the second time tragedy. As a tragedy. The first time as a tragedy, the second time as a farce. So the arguments about history notwithstanding, I think that the problem of human rights in Kenya is a problem of underdevelopment itself. So when you have a population where you have 80% unemployment, you have a rural and city balance that is more parochial for the rural people, and where poverty is the bane of the existence of that nation, the state then has to become predatory to maintain law and order. Because the seeds of revolutionary movements do not come from ideological positions. They come from the material conditions of any society. The great Amilcar Cabral used to say that the people I'm not interested in ideas. They're interested in schools, the hospitals, roads, material things that makes them alive. And I think that notwithstanding the fight that all of us here sitting fought for this constitution, so that we could not get a dictatorship in this country, there is no question that our government is killing to stay in power. There's no question about that, because we nearly had a revolution in this country. And the abuse of rights of the people of this country is precisely because of that phenomenology. The problem of having a state and having poverty under it. So I argue, although I agree with my teacher, Mr. Kagwanja, on many things, there's one thing that I don't agree with. I think constitutional government is the best form of government. And the only way to secure our human rights is to find a judicial system that we can go to and plead with the governors over our case. Although I support military coups in West Africa because of French imperialism, the danger of authoritarian military coups is that they, at the end of the day, if they're not leftist, if they're not developmental, and they do not protect the people, you have a lot of people like, you'll get people like Pinochet in Chile, in Africa. And that will cause, you know, they just elected the son of a Nazi in Chile the other day. So
Benjamin Netanyahu
exactly,
congratulated him.
yes, Benjamin Netanyahu congratulated him. Now, here in our country, Githurai was on Citizen TV, and the gunfire was insane. We still haven't accounted for so much of the bodies of the people who died at that place. We know that the children who went and demonstrated were all picked from their houses. We know that there was assassinations of our citizens. We know that people died in police cells. There isn't been there's zero accountability on it. Okay. And I think that it is very important for our judicial system to be an activist judicial system. See, the problem with our judiciary, it's conservative, very conservative. In other countries, the prosecutors and the defenders of human rights who are sitting in the judicial system tend to actually call for witnesses to talk about what has happened in a country. In this country, we don't have that. And I think we need a huge reform in our judicial system, especially because of corruption. Lastly, I think that, you know, Churchill said that if you want to make a good speech, the skirt has to be long, but short enough for it to be interesting.
To cover the essentials. To
cover the essentials. So I don't want to lead this panel into a very long skirt. Yeah. I give it to my senior on the right.
I don't know why.
That is a quote by Churchill. It's not me. Actually, he knows about it.
No, you know that one of the things you don't do, you don't quote most of Churchill's, in public, because You know what he talked about, the prerogative of the Harrods?
Yes.
You know, in the morning, you can say that in the evening.
Yeah, it's one of the great quotes of history. You know?
The prerogative of the Harrod is, responsibility without what? Benefits without responsibility.
Yeah.
Or power without responsibility.
And there are some interesting quotes politically as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
That politicians should be able to also be responsible for not only what happens today, but also in future.
In future.
In the future.
Actions should be consequential.
Exactly.
As he put it.
Yes, I wanted just to show that we have no difference between what, my brother Hashi is saying and what I have been saying. That if you go to the ordinary Kenyan out there, and you ask about Kenya, person, why did you elect President William Ruto? They will tell you very straight that they were marginalized, they were not getting development from the previous regime, and they were hopeful from his...
Yes, that's very true.
Then, when you look at the propaganda that was churned out around that time, or the campaign, that will churn out that. To give you the aura of President William Ruto as a person who has the potential of being a strong man, of the Moi model, or maybe even others. But why didn't people fear? Because development trumps everything. If you want to deal with terrorism, it is not arming yourself to the teeth to deal with terrorists. It is basically developing them out of the forests. Develop them out of the from the mountains where they are hiding. And that's how the Chinese have kicked out Dalai Lama out of his home. By developing Tibet. Tibet out of reach of Dalai Lama, because the young people will have no time now they want to go to jobs, they want to go to movies, they want to go to the train, they want to enjoy life as it is now. Whatever Dalai Lama is promising them in the heavens and thereafter is already here.
Not yet.
So my warning, and back to what we have been discussing outside the screen with Hashi and my brother Bongi, is that if Ruto delivers development, even the risks we are talking about, deaths and on and on and on, are going to be basically swamped. Because this country is hungry for development. We have seen good times, particularly the early years of Quebec when people had money. The very early years of Kenyatta, when the Kenya shilling was stronger than the dollar. People saw development. When people were demolishing those houses in Mount Kenya, which were thatched huts, we used to call them mushrooms. You demolish them and build stone houses. People have seen development in this country. And if William Ruto is able or capable of doing that, it's amazing how that's going to work. I advised President Kibaki and his government at that time. And the struggle we were having from the Hashis of this world at that time was essentially that they characterized as the ancient regime of the French Revolution.
Yes.
And when they were beating us, it was basically destroying the ancient regime of the Roman, of the French. Kibaki was not a darling as people would like to see him now. He was beaten, and most of us had actually to have the bypasses to protect his government, because this is essentially it. Now, come to imagine, when we look back at what we achieved in terms of development, when you look at the picture of Kenya, the image of Kenya, from any European media, and you see this expressway, you see these highways, you see this, we look like we are out of Africa. We are not a country on the continent. We are literally like the city of Paris, or the Beijing, or New York. That's how we look. So development is everything, and I'm basically warning ourselves as opposition that if you want to do a fight with a Kung Fu master, please
prepare for it.
Prepare for it, because it's not a joke. I'm not trying to deify the president, but simply saying, if you are looking for Machiavelli to the power of 5 or to the power of 10, somebody who understands the script, but more importantly, somebody who thinks long term. He does not think today. He thinks 5, 10 years ahead. and he started implementing the plan today. So if you're thinking that it is 2026 and 2027, his game started way long before 2025. So that's the point.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Well, two things. One is what Professor Kawanja has referred to. It was at the center of the Kibaki administration. At the time, I was head of state parastatal, so I didn't have the opportunity to say much at the time.
He was one of the eating chiefs.
We appointed you from the Prime Minister's office to Utali.
Yes. Well, that's a story for another day. So I couldn't dab myself in politics at the time. But the greatest challenge with the Kibaki administration, as it were, was his attempt to reenact the Kenyatta state. Sitting back as an elder statesman and unleash literally Keynesian economics on the country, develop the macro environment, and the rest of the lesser mortals will take care of themselves depending on the benefits that come out of it. I think that was the challenge people had. That's why some of the benefits that we are reaping now from some of the projects actually come from that policy. That's why Kibaki is more of a saint now than he was when he was alive. We look at the free education, and we see the children of Kibaki now saying, guys, we have an education and we are going to the streets if you play around with us. Those are the benefits. We look at the Thika Road and the wide range of economic impacts that have come as a result of that. We say, oh, we look at the project like LAPSET. We say there's something that is coming up, and many others. SGL was conceived at the time, and many others. They talk about measurable development and all that. That is where the impact was. He had a more long-term approach to development than the short-term approach of eating today, here, and now. The second point is this thing that you talked about, the deaths and the statistics that were released by the Human Rights Commission. This is really, especially for this year, is a plot on our national conscience as a nation. That more than 3 years of our independence, we are still talking about the death of our people in circumstances that bespeak of violation of human rights. It is actually something that we need to sit back and think seriously about. Currently, I teach a course to our human rights students on the history of human rights. And incidentally, what we were talking about last night, and I could believe that a few of my students are watching, is that human rights don't come as instant coffee. The dignity of, for example, of human life is achieved over a period of time as a resistance to certain instances that violate that dignity. And probably if there is a time when Kenya needs to stand up and say no to some of these extrajudicial killings, is actually now.
Okay.
It's urgent, it is important, it is critical that we need to say that yes, we have had relative political stability, but this has continued to taint that. Talking about finding dead bodies in the Yala in the past years, and now people being killed in circumstances that cause a lot of suspicion. It is important that we take it as a priority as a country and say enough is enough.
Thank you. Ahmed, let's also shift gears as you come in regarding the investments militarily and in terms of diplomacy Kenya made in the DRC. And just 10 days after the Washington outing by Kagame and Tshisekedi, it was all deja vu in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo.
You know, one of the most astonishing things that I have seen in my short political life, I can say short, is 5-6 presidents from the African continent sitting on some chairs with a rope showing where they should be sitting, and Trump lecturing them on what is happening in Africa. The only good thing he looked to say for us was, oh, you know, we have the Olympics and you people have good runners. You know, the Americans cannot stand William Ruto. They're just absolutely opposed to him. They're opposed to him for the reasons that Mr. Kagwanja has said. They have gone to China to go and look for development. And Kenya is seen as a Western Hemisphere bastion in this region. And Trump needs Kenya in the DRC. So he cannot antagonize us for now, but he will antagonize us very soon. Elon Musk, who is here in Kilifi, they keep insulting Africa in New York, but they come for holidays to Kilifi. If they think we're shithole countries, if I can use that word, why they come here to come and take holidays, to me is a contradiction in terms. And I think that that kind of Boer apartheid thinking that has now enveloped the White House, where the strongest state in Africa, South Africa, has been excluded, and the most conservative state in Africa is being included. It speaks volumes about what the United States' intentions are. You know that South Africa, they have refused to bring them to the G20, yes. Which is outrageous. You know, this is for a member, a sitting member, and a representative of 1.8 billion people in this continent. And for them to say, come to, and for them to talk to William Ruto tells you, speaks volumes about the politics of Africa today. Secondly, I think that the attack on the Somali community, the Ethiopian community, and all Africans, and particularly the Somali community in Minnesota by Mr. Trump, shows this kind of fascist interpretation today of the American state, in which the rights of citizens is being bamboozled, where you have agents called ICE entering private property and asking people for identification. I believe that, and I'm going to make a prediction, that before the end of Trump's term, that the American system of government is going to turn around and attack Mr. Trump viciously for his breaking of the constitutional order. It is not the attack on Africans that we know as a racist prototype, but the breaking of the American Constitution's most basic rights is a cause for alarm around the world. Lastly, one last point. I think that President Ruto is making a huge foreign policy mistake. I think he's trying to balance the Americans and the Chinese, and he's going to lose one of them. And when he loses one of them, there's going to be a lot to pay. And I've consistently tracked his foreign policy, the way he conducts foreign policy. He is very lucky that the DRC issue came up, because if we didn't have the issue of the DRC, the Americans would have really chased after Mr. Ruto in this country. Ayub, I put it to you that it is very important that practitioners of foreign policy in this country be asked one or two things about how to conduct our foreign policy. I think it's just nuts. Yeah.
And Prof, talking about the foreign policy question, Dr. I'll also come to you. Looking at the Trump administration's national security strategy, the NSS, makes no important reference to Africa, and even shocking to some, including hawkish and conservative Republicans. John Bolton, his former national security advisor, lamented that his former boss had no strategy at all. Instead, Trump, he said, worked by impulse and without the encumbrance of too many briefings, including intelligence. From day one to the next, he veered off in opposite directions. It seems also our foreign policy seems to be all over. If you look at involvement in Sudan, accusations leveled against us by the Congolese, as well as our foreign policy forays seem to be much in need of energy at foreign affairs. That's more accommodating of the global events.
I think I've been a little bit, I've been harsh to my two friends, Musalia Mudavadi and my brother Ibrahim Sangwe.
The PS.
The PS, the two. If one could be more structural, you'd say what the regime has done is to veer from the good culture that we have had as Kenyans. Hashi has been the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I've been there. So you know that this country, from all directions, from all corners of our decision-making processes, we try to adhere to some processes, to some law, to the point that even when President Daniel Arap Moi wanted to detain you, you would be detained as per the law. You appear before the court and you are given orders that you'll be detained. So it was dictatorship by law. Dictatorship by process. The problem with our foreign policy is that we veered from that good old tradition, whereby you think through what you want to do first and then do it. You produce a paper or some roadmap that is understood by the public. And therefore, if there are contradictions that come out of that, the public is already aware what your intentions were. This time, all countries look after their interest. If getting gold from South Sudan or from Sudan is what serves our national interest, if I'm sitting on that seat, I'll do it, but justify it in a certain way. But when you are caught, when it comes to the public that this is what happened, and there was no explanation, there was no paper in terms of defining the roadmap of to why you are there, then that's where you catch yourself. I don't want to say this, but I think it's the truth. We return to the politics of the Sokomjinga of the Moi era, where you make pronouncements on the roadside. And when you have a white paper that you present, like the one the Reto Uko presented, which is very good, nobody understands the fundamentals, the principles governing that paper. And I'm sure we're going to discuss these funds and the lack of fundamentals in them. Because everything in Kenya, from the colonial time, even dictatorship, even bad deeds were justified as by the law. If you remember the first paper that took Jomo Kenyatta to London to go and lobby the Queen, of course, he couldn't, but what they call the white paper of 1921.
The Devonshire.
Devonshire
23.
The Devonshire white paper simply justified taking over our land as Africans and giving it to white people to do the farming and for us to be farmers for them. And it was quite elevated. It's talked about the Devonshire, and we understood. But it is said in the future this will be a black man's country. But it didn't say this is a white man's country. It's evil justified in paper. So what the current government has done, and why it is very difficult to do our paper, is that it has not explained what it did. Uhuru Kenyatta, on the 9th of April 2013, went to Kasarani and read the longest speech ever.
Actually, inauguration.
For his inauguration, which was so clear about where he's taking the country in terms of local domestic policy, regional policy, where region means East Africa, African policy, and global policy. It was so clear. So that if ever he veered, you knew why he's veering, and you'd explain it. So I think that's a problem we have had in this current. And it is not just in foreign policy alone. In all these other policies. Like now, we have veered off from the Hasra nation, the bottom up. Nobody has seen it necessary to explain to us as why we have taken the turn now to the, we call them we have the grassroots and we have the grass tops. So we have now in the grass tops, no longer in the grassroots. Why? Nobody explained. There's no paper to explain. Yet, the presidency is packed with the most
special advisors
that are in their 20s. Can't you burn the midnight oil and give us something that we can read for
a doctrine.
Around? A doctrine and tell us this is why
where we're going.
Why are we having so many educated illiterates in the advisory? Because illiteracy means you cannot read and write.
As you have said here on so many times, the promotion of some individuals into incompetence.
Incompetence.
Yes, Dr.
Yeah, maybe what Prof is missing to say is they need to be good students of history, those close to the president and those who are his advisors. Because literally, both colonial and Kenya's post-colony have been ruled by policies that are on paper. You know, whether they were good or bad, but still they were on paper. Professor Kawanja has talked about the Devonshire white paper
yes.
that literally made Kenya a white man's country and shunted to the side the Africans themselves and the Indians, who were becoming a force to reckon with in competing with the British when it came to benefiting from Kenya as a colony. Way forward, when we wanted to adopt capitalism, we baptized it African socialism and its application to development planning. That's the session of paper number 10. 1965. When Kibaki came in, as elitist and erudite as he was, we were talking about poverty and unemployment eradication, and I'm sure you were at the center of creating that that paper. That is, I think, what we are missing at the time where we are. Trying to reason around and make it public and justify even the unjustifiable. That's my first point. The second one, I'm surprised that my friend Hashi will bemoan the treatment of African presidents by Trump. Trump's contempt for Africa and its leaders, if it is a secret, is actually a public
knowledge.
It's an open secret, if it were a secret. And sometimes we earn this disrespect. We can hardly feed our people.
True.
Right now, a number of regions in the country, animals are dropping down, and soon we may have tragic situations there. We can rarely provide health care for our people. We can, rarely maintain stability in our region. Right now, as I speak, if you look cross-sectionally in Africa, whether east to west, north to south, every country has some sort of level of instability. Even our own, Kenya, which, as Mo used to say, we are an island of peace in a chaotic sea of instability. Still, we have our own challenges. There's some kind of instability, whether you are talking about the largest economy in Africa, South Africa. There are some challenges of inequality that create a potential for chaos.
Actually, South Africa is the most unequal country in the world.
That's it. Look at that. Now we earn that. That is why I have argued on this forum that this is a wake-up call to African presidents to go back to the dream of Kwame Nkrumah, the United States of Africa. I mean, when we are tiny, little, unviable entities called 56 countries, we cannot have a force. The reason why China and India are giants is because their population alone, India, I think it's now 1.4 billion people, China is 1.5 billion people, is what actually makes them a power, first and foremost. The whole of Africa combined, our population is 1.2 billion people. But when you isolate that and you create a country called Kenya with only 54 million people, that's a small state in India. I don't think whether even the state of Haryana, the smallest state within the Indian Union, is bigger than the population of Kenya. That's why I said last time, and people did not agree, when the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited and they were standing with our president. It was Uhuru then. And I think I either tweeted or wrote in Facebook that when the two stand together, they are not standing as equals. One is a CEO of only 54 million people, and another one is a CEO of 1,400 million people.
Yeah.
So Africa unite.
Okay.
I think there's a singer who sang that.
Yeah.
Africa unite. That is our secret.
History is being invented in vast quantities. It's a great historian called Eric Hobsbawm.
Yes.
And I think that...
the Marxist historian.
I think it's very important for us to point out to the public that because we have a political situation in our continent that is being led by politicians who are not standing for the common good nor have any vision, does not necessarily give Donald Trump the right to be a racist. I mean, we have to call that out. Just because our continent has been structured into world history in a certain way, and in the modern period we have been structured in a certain way, doesn't give the empire the right to make something, to say something about our human condition. I mean, I disagree with that in a very profound sense. And I think every African should. And I think that we have our own struggle in this continent against those who want to continue serving the empire and those who want to turn Africa around and make it into a more decent, common place for us to live in. So that debate is very important for us to participate in, and that's one. The second thing is, I've always liked Fanon. A lot of people don't like him. He once said, the native doesn't want his freedom. Very pithy fellow. All he wants is the settler's farm, his house, and preferably his blonde wife. I mean, yes, it's true. The history is on the right, some on the center, and some on the left. The social democratic understanding of history is different from the one on the right or on the center, but it is legitimate nonetheless. So Mr. Trump's assertions are being opposed by Americans themselves. It's being opposed by South America, which has said that you do not have a right to take ships and go into a country and invade it. We disagree with that. We disagree with the fact that our president, although was maintaining diplomatic decorum, was dealing with Mr. Trump as a prefect. And nobody, including the chair of the African Union who was sitting there, who was in Angola, didn't call out the President Trump on his issues with Africa. And I think this is very important because in the preceding, I was just talking about Nkrumah, in the preceding periods of the presidents that we had, they would stand up in these forums and say, look, we want good relations with the United States, we want good relations with the Soviet Union, but we're not going to allow this kind of condescending attitude that we ourselves fought against to gain independence in this country. Lastly, I think we should not whitewash that history. I think it is very important for the fact that they took Cyril Ramaphosa to the White House and Elon Musk, who is a product of apartheid and Boerism in South Africa, who gave fake pictures to Donald Trump to say that these whites were being killed, while we know that for 400 years, millions of Africans were dying in South Africa's mines and under the racist apartheid system. And we ought to stand up for this continent and its convictions. Even when we're at a low level, we still have to stand up because it's a moral responsibility.
Yeah, and coming to Dr. before I come to you, allow me to go to Prof then, because it's very profound that Ahmed mentions the interests of the imperial powers, and let's put this into context, Prof, and you have extensively written about this. Recently we have seen the constant air bombings by the Americans targeting what they termed as narco-terrorists, targeting Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. But looking at the statistics, certainly the accusations are inaccurate, false to be specific, because Mexico is the primary transit country for nearly all illicit drugs in America, followed by Colombia, China, Peru, then Bolivia, and Guatemala, Venezuela only functions as a major transit hub for Colombian cocaine due to its porous borders and extensive coastline. If you juxtapose this with the Congo situation, was it more about the deal or the minerals of the Congolese people?
Very good.
As is the case here with Venezuela, which sits on the largest oil deposits in the world,
Yes.
only followed by Saudi Arabia.
Interesting, because we have just we are releasing our book in January called The Security of Power. Basically, the security of power is how do you secure electricity? How do you secure the so-called green energy that we are talking about now?
Yeah.
Now we have, maybe the world is not aware, maybe Kenyans are not aware, we have taken a major shift since the Industrial Revolution, the first Industrial Revolution, when the steam engine and others were invented, and later on we have petroleum. We have now moved from there to the new energy. And the new energy is not coming from oil and gas, it's coming from minerals, cobalt, lithium, and all. Now, when energy is now coming from there, the new scramble is for mineral countries, producing countries. Congo, Eastern Congo to be more specific, is producing 70% of cobalt, which is the mineral that is fueling this. Lithium is also there in huge amounts. Africa as a continent has the largest lithium content. I mean, we're talking about the rich ones. And therefore, what happens is that certain schools of thought in the West believe that it is easier to exploit or access African minerals and resources when there is conflict. When there is peace, they are expensive because the regimes will put taxes and so on. So this is what we call, entrepreneurship through violence, or what we call violent entrepreneurship. And that is what you are now finding in Congo. That's what you are finding in other countries. Now, talking about Venezuela, now this is a restatement of Monroe Doctrine, that the West belongs to us. The Western Hemisphere belongs to us. That's what America is doing, is drawing the line. And they are saying China cannot go there. In one of the conferences I attended last week, one of the CEO of a lithium producing company complained that he had gotten mines and had started work, but he was basically ran out of town from one of the countries in the West. Why? Because America is very clear. The West belongs to us. The Western Hemisphere belongs to us. It doesn't matter whether you are on the right or whatever you do must be aligned with American interest. That is a restatement of Monroe Doctrine. So, in short, we are going to see more of this. Are you surprised that we have instability in Somalia, which is one of the most potential uranium-producing countries? Huge uranium content. We have conflict in Sudan. The fabulous source of gold in the West, which is basically funding the West. We have conflict in Congo. I've talked about lithium. I've talked about cobalt. I've not talked about copper. And copper is now the mineral at the heart of the global economy. Now, copper is it. If you have copper,
a lot of it here.
Yes. We have a lot of it here, I'm told, but let's see how it is. You go to Central African Republic, you go to... all these conflicts are going to re-emerge. The purpose being to control the strategic minerals that are running the world. That's it.
What I wanted to say, you know, Hash, you're right in talking about the way Trump is looking at the rest of the world, particularly Africa. But my argument is that that is actually the way things have been historically. That's what we need to talk about, try and see whether we can change.
Correct.
It's not just in America where African presidents are treated like nobodies. And if you remember, and we were given security as a reason, when the Queen died.
September 2022.
22.
They were in the bus.
African presidents were put in a bus.
Were bussed.
And transported.
Very bad.
But that is not the way. You remember very few people who were allowed to drive themselves into that place was the Indian premier.
Yes, the Chinese premier.
The Chinese premier.
In the U.S.
And the U.S. and the Prime Minister of Israel. Look at that. Look at the common denominator among this. And look at the common denominator among many African presidents.
Yeah, I see your point.
Who were put in coast bus,
Yeah.
To the funeral of the Queen. That is exactly what we are talking about. Historically, 12 million Congolese were killed by the Belgians, by King Leopold.
Yep.
Nobody calls it
Holocaust.
Holocaust or genocide.
Yep, very true.
The Germans killed the Relo and the Nami in Namibia.
It was a test for the concentration camps.
Look at that.
Yeah.
The British, in the words of my colleague and contemporary, turned Kenya into a gulag.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Caroline Elkins.
Also, 10 million Indians killed in the British Empire.
In the British Empire, some of them starved to death. That is what we need to begin to talk about. A very clear historical trajectory of how the West has treated the rest of the world, and how we can correct that so that we say from now forward, we are making strides towards changing this. And we can only do that, and I repeat what I said earlier, if Africa unites.
Yeah, I agree.
But if we are going to be tiny little countries, the Kenyas, the Burundi, the Rwandas, the Cape Verdes of this world, we are just finished. And we are finishing ourselves. And we will see it coming, and there's nothing we are going to do as a country.
I couldn't agree more. The point, my colleagues are absolutely right. I think that that book called The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born by Aikwe Arma.
Yes.
I think the beautiful ones have been born. I really believe that, because I think that my hopes may be a bit idealistic, but I think that these under-25s in Africa are the spearhead of the coming transformation. Why do I say that? Here in Kenya, you can see our opposition. They're playing the same tribal container game that our president is playing. The president wants to grab Western Kenya. He's been locked out of Kisii. Now he's out. He believes Luo Nyanza is going to give him the vote. I don't think they will. Up there in the Rift Valley, he believes he can still win Trans Nzoia, and then he can put the Kamatusas together and win an election in this country. So it's the same old story. You remember when he came into power, he started with the bottom up. Revolutionary, brilliant political. And I was shocked we lost the election. I couldn't believe it. Of course, I'm a human being. I lose sometimes. Everybody has to lose. But today, the story is about Singapore. He hasn't told us that Lee Kuan Yew had a two-child policy.
You support that?
So, is the president going to tell us that I should have 2 children? It's anti-Somalism. That's anti-Somali.
You've already broken that.
So second, is he going to tell us that he's going to be extremely authoritarian and break up the opposition and call the country a multi-ethnic society? Because Lee Kuan Yew simply said that they are Malaysians, they are Indians, and there's the Chinese.
Yes.
And everybody's going to live in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
They're going to have their little councils, but they'll be represented here in the National Assembly, but the power will remain in the office of the Prime Minister and with the Chinese. That it's there. You just have to Google that. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah. Second is that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew veered so much to the right.
Yep.
That it was nearly totalitarian. And this democratic cover was a lie. He smashed the leftist parties in Singapore and put them in jail.
Yep.
Is the president suggesting that he's going to scrap our constitution? Is the president kept saying that he's going to change the country in 30 years? Are we going to be with him for 30 years or not? I also urge the president that there's some dark cars that have been following me for a few days. And down Bagadi Road, I think the president should know that we have worked together and that I'm a fierce Kenyan. And I really hope that these dark cars disappear, because this is the Christmas season. And, you know, we want peace on earth. And the president is a very good Christian. You see, he's always on the church here on Sunday. So as a Christian, from a Muslim, I'm saying to him, Merry Christmas, Bwana President. Na hizi magari zisifuate kwa heshima yako.
Is that part of the
I want to believe.
and Prof, if you look at the comparisons, just for specificity, for instance, in Singapore, public office was points of service delivery.
Yeah.
In Kenya, it's seen as an investment.
Yeah.
Because of the 125, we can name those industrialists, the manufacturers, and investors who have seriously put their money to create jobs. Scandal ended careers there. In our country, it launches campaigns, somebody wrote. There was proper planning in Singapore, unlike here, where you see haphazard manner in which the country is planned for ID. So in terms of the moral high ground, it seems that we have no fundamentally very solid foundation, is it?
And I agree with you, that is true. But also, the idea of Singapore is this a kind of escapist situation that the neighbors' children are dressing well. Therefore, we should do that without looking at what exactly Singapore represents.
Yes.
I mean, the economy is not everything. In fact, people have stopped looking at GDP. They are talking about gross national happiness, not gross national product. Gross national happiness means that your kids are in school, you can go to the hospital, you can go for a holiday, like now we are going for Christmas, you can have a full meal, you have a nice house. This is a gross national happiness. Now, Kenya's gross national happiness is very low. Now, don't compare Kenya with Singapore, because Kenya is a giant. Really, Singapore is an island. 6.1 million people. That is the city of Nairobi.
It's actually a city-state.
It's a city-state.
It's not a country.
It's not a country. You know, it is the city of Nairobi. In fact, if you take grocery, what we are larger than Singapore, to be honest with you. What has happened is that international capital has invested more in Singapore because it has made itself attractive.
Yes.
But not what they have produced. Now, here in Kenya, we had Vision 2030, which is ending in 4 or so years. Now, the president has not even told us how much we have achieved from Vision 2030, how much we have failed, how much we have veered from the original vision, how Uhuru basically detoured from it with the four pillars or whatever pillars they were. Now, Ruto has come up with the Hustler Nation, basically shooting Vision 2030 from below. Now it's not working, now it's coming to the top. I mean, he should be giving us Vision 2063. The 30 years he's talking about is the 30 years that would now be helping us to diagnose Vision 2030 and see how we are going to get Vision 2063. Basically, 100 years after Kenya's, birth of Kenya. What is it that we want to see? We have achieved what we wanted from Vision 2030, except a few things here and there. We wanted to be a middle-income country, and the World Bank has already sorted us out. When Tanzania is getting foreign aid, we don't. Because there are certain resources globally we cannot access because we are categorized as developed, which is great. But at the same time, we need to be organized. Let me go back to the last point I made. Kenya is a very systematic and deliberate country. We rule by the rule of law. Hashi has been talking about constitutionalism, because he's a child of that order that we were born into. And when we see chaos, we don't know how to live with it. When we see mercantilism, publicity instead of action, we are not able to live with it. Bring us down to what we are. Our DNA is a people who wake up to tie a tie, who wake up to be neat, to wake up to go to church, who wake up to read the Bible, to read the Quran. We are people of letters, people of systems, Now, all this other chaos we are finding is not sitting down well with us.
Yep.
We need to be told what happened to Vision 2030. We need to be told where are we going after this. This is what we are not getting.
Dr. Can I sample the feedback, then come to you?
Okay.
The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikandid. Bobo Wino says, 2025 year in review, especially in Kenya, has been an authoritarianism with a lot of promises, lies, mad with human rights violations, and nothing is working for the government from economy, health, and education. Kipyegon Arap Sigei says, in 2025, we witnessed serious violation of human rights by the state, from abductions, extrajudicial killings to silencing of dissenting voices. Democratic space is shrinking. Kenya is heading in the wrong direction. Engineer says the biggest headache in East Africa is just weak judicial system. Highly doctored, slow pace of judicial process automatically gives birth to three major things. 1, impunity. 2, mega corruption. 3, massive violations of human dignity. Biraro says, considering the resources bestowed in our country, including human resources, Kenya can actually become the first world country. Apparently, this cannot happen under the presidency of President William Ruto. He has already failed in everything he has put forward. The corruption is 100%. Yes, Dr. Closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much. What I wanted to say, in addition to what Professor Kawanja was saying about the dream of wanting to be African Singapore, is that we are in day 3 of the official launch of that dream. And the best we can do now is to give the president the benefit of the doubt, as it were. But I'm a historian also. You know, for a very long time, Ayub, as a country, it didn't start with President Ruto. We have talked to Singapore, but acted African. That disconnect does not really work. What we pray for, and I guess we believe in prayers in this case, is that as a country, we will have the discipline that Singapore had, that turned Lee Kuan Yew into a benevolent dictator, banned international press from Singapore, and organized people's lives, including chewing gum in Singapore is illegal, whether we are ready for that discipline. 2, that we will create our country and have such a strong international appeal that people will bring their money here.
I want to urge the president to open probably the largest cancer center in Africa. Our cancer is killing a lot of our people. I lost my wife to it about 9 years ago, and I think that cancer is a very important thing. And Kenyans are suffering under the weight of lack of health care in that department and in many other departments. So I want to remember Wahi Yusuf Dirir, a partner, friend, comrade who died 9 years ago, and the Hinda, Hamud, Adan, Abian, Hawea, and Ladan. Stand your ground.
Thank you. Yes, Prof.
I think we have had a good year in terms of thought. I think one of the things I can say is to congratulate Kenya for keeping it open so that we can talk, so that we can share views. Freely. We've not reached the level of Lee Kuan Yew's Singapore, and we don't want to go there. We want to stay here in Kenya with our freedom, with our constitutionalism, and I think we want to congratulate those who have fought for that space. It has been a good year so far. We hope 2026 will be quite open. I was saddened by what Hashish talked about, the black cars behind him whenever he's doing it. So we hope those things don't happen.
Don't happen in this country.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ahmed. Daktari, thank you. And
thank
Prof,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks for your concern.
Asante sana, asante sana.
Throughout the
whole year. And to you, a bright spot in our country.
Yes.
An incredible young man.
Yep.
We're just very proud of you. Now tutakupatia PhD because umepata.
Sio ile ya
professor hapa wametoa lecture. Na sio mchezo, ni personal, 1-to-1. It's not a joke.
But tell him to come to class.
Your questions
are really good.
Your questions are to the point.
Yes.
The level at which you have elevated
The
this
debate is
platform
amazing.
It's not about us and what we are saying.
Yeah.
It's about
how you bring it out.
You have brought up the game.
Asante, appreciate it, Dr. Prof. Thank you. And by the grace of God, we'll see you next year.
Amin. Inshallah.
Have yourselves a lovely boat.
Inshallah.
And to you too. Up next is Safina Chiango with health and lifestyle. And good morning.
You deserve this. It's true.